to run through the introduction to the last part of this topic, which is the division of complex numbers. So after you give this a go today, we'll be doing some exam paper questions for the end of the week, and this will be another chapter finished. So division of complex numbers, really simple and straightforward. This is the rule that we use, and this is the thing that happens in the vast majority of all of the problems if we're dealing with the division by a complex number. So if we've got a complex number below the line, so usually it comes in the form of a fraction, and let's say it's 15 plus 20i divided by 3 plus I, something like that. Okay, what we need to do is that we multiply the denominator, we multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. So if you don't remember, on top of the line is the numerator, below the line is the denominator. We are looking to get the conjugate of the denominator. So the conjugate of that, nice and simple, I just changed the sign of the imaginary part, if you remember. So that's the conjugate. And all we got to do then is multiply above and below by that conjugate. So when we do that, then what happens is we can get rid of all of the imaginary part below the line. So I've got a worked example that I'm going to show you in a minute, but you can imagine we've got these multiplying, and that's going to become I squared, which becomes, well, it's minus I squared, which becomes plus 1. So there's no imaginary part anymore. The other parts that multiply, the 3 multiplies by the minus I, and the 3 multiplies by the I, they cancel out. So we're left with just a real number below the line. And when we have a real number below the line, then we're able to just divide it in nice and simply. So that's all there is to it. So to look at a specific part then, if we have a real number, okay, so this is the easier part, as I said. If we have a real number, if we're dividing a complex number by a real number, it's very simple. All we just do is split it up. So we take the real part, we take the imaginary part, and we divide each of those things by the denominator. And usually it'll be given to you when the number divides it evenly. So the example that I've given you there, 15 plus 10i over 5. So you just divide each part by 5, and you end up with a nice simple answer like that. If that doesn't work out and you get an unusual number at the bottom, that's fine. You can just leave it as a fraction. So we split each part up and divide by the denominator. Nice and simple. So what we're aiming for, when we have a complex number like the example, and this is the example taken from the book, when we have a complex number at the bottom, a number involving I, we have to do what it says up here. Okay? So when we do that, we end up with something then that looks like this, that we have a real number at the bottom, and then it's an easy division from there. Okay, so what you can see is I've got 2 plus 11i all over 2 plus I. So first thing to do, we get the conjugate of the denominator by changing the sign of the imaginary part. So I end up with 2 minus I, and then I'm going to multiply above and below the line by 2 minus I. So you can see I've done it there, 2 minus I by 2 minus I. I've split it up. I've got 2 sets of brackets, so I split my brackets, I multiply the whole thing out, and step by step, simple algebra like you would have done, we end up with I squared here and I squared here. They become minus 1, and we use our signs correctly to make sure we're clear. And then you end up where you can see there, we've got 15 plus 20i all over 5. And now, no issues whatsoever, because I've got a real number at the bottom. I can split it up nice and easily. I've got 15 over 5 plus 20i over 5. And I'll just divide each of those in to end up with 3 plus 4i. And that's all there is to it. So take your time. Again, it's good practice on your algebra, good practice on your multiplying out of brackets. But the steps are straightforward once we get that conjugate of the denominator, as I've said there. We get that conjugate and we multiply above and below by that. Stick by the rule that I've drawn on the top. We can't go wrong. Thank you very much.